Everyone, thank you for joining our panel, finance panel. We are very honored to celebrate the 15th anniversary of Turkish Wind Energy Congress this year. I'm very happy to be in Ankara together with you, and thank you for your patience. It's the last panel of the day. It's not easy, but please accept our apologies for the delay in the program. But I'm pretty sure that our esteemed panelists today will provide you quite insightful information, and we hope that you will enjoy. Maybe I can shortly introduce our speakers, and before starting I will also make a very short speech about the agenda. Şule Hanım from EBRD, I am not sure I have to introduce her. I'm pretty sure that you know her, not in Turkey, but for the most of the countries. She's quite responsible and quite active, and very happy to have her here. Mert YAYCIOДLU from Enerjisa, Üretim, CFO, thank you for joining us today. MOLLER from KfW IPEX-Bank, he is the co-head of structuring renewable energy projects, not in Turkey only, but also all around the world, so we hope that he will provide some expertise from his international perspective as well. Kayahan Bey, an ex-banker and an investor, we can see him maybe as a hybrid profile. So we can ask what is the difference now as an investor compared to his previous banking experience. That was a tricky part I didn't mention before the panel. So joke aside, and Berrin from Direktör, which is a great participant of Turkish wind energy industry, providing many fundings and guarantees to wind energy projects. Before starting and leaving floor to our esteemed speakers, I may also thank to our sponsor ABB, which is a global organization providing reliable technological infrastructure for large-scale energy projects. Also, their subsidiary ABB Switzerland is one of the most component stakeholders within scope of SERV, providing support for invoicing and scope compliance SERV-funded projects. Thank you once more for ABB team for sponsoring this finance station. So, Şule Hanım, being one of the biggest contributors of the Turkish, not only wind, but the renewable energy. Can we start with you by taking your general assessment, how you see the market, what are the risks and mitigants and opportunities, and if you can provide your insights within an international banking perspective, I'm pretty sure that that will also be helpful for our guidance.
Thank you, Çağrı, first of all, for your very nice verse. Now having my new role as the Director for Energy Eurasia and having already visited all my 10 countries, one thing I can tell you, the problem is the same in all our region. By the way, when I say Eurasia, it is basically Turkey, Caucasus, and Central Asia and Mongolia. And in each of the countries I've been, the problem is the same, the objective is the same. Which is the greening of the economy, which means greening of the energy sector, and ambitious renewable energy targets. But there are problems together with it, which is limitations on the transmission and grid, and storage is still a big technological development area which needs to be further progressed. Having said that, Turkey, of course, by its size and its clear strategy, which was put in place by our Minister Alparslan Bayraktar and his team, is giving a big opportunity for Turkey. At least it is definitely giving a very big foreseeable visibility and expectations for the investors to consider investing in this country. What is different compared with the other countries which I have seen is Turkey, I think, is lucky because it has a very strong private sector. It is already very developed private sector mindset. Private sector has its own capabilities, teams, and experience already in place. While, for example, in Central Asia, one thing I'm seeing is they are very much dependent on the foreign investor coming in. And of course, this doesn't mean that Turkey doesn't need. Of course, now with the sizes we are talking, Turkey also needs more external financing sources, both on the equity side as well as debt side. But this big sizes and ambitious program gives a very good opportunity stream in front of us. This, of course, comes together with its challenges. I mean, our minister also mentioned today, every year 7 gigawatt of wind energy investments to be made, which means $6 billion, he said, in total cost. Plus, of course, when you consider the infrastructure investments to be made, transmission investments to be made together with it, probably we are talking close to $10 billion a year. Despite of the fact that we have a very developed financing market in Turkey, I think these sizes are big to swallow. So this means we definitely need more foreign financing sources, and that's where we as DFIs come on board. One of the handicaps, let me put it this way, with the Turkey case, when I compare with Central Asia, for example, Turkey is somehow seen more developed country. And when we knock the doors of concessional financing, by the way, what does that mean, concessional financing? Is cheap and long-term financing sources from funds which is allocated for the purpose of the green energy. And what we do as a DFI is we generally try to attract those concessional financing sources to our projects, our countries, such that we can blend those financings with our own financing sources, which we call it blended financing, to help our sponsor as well as the project economics and to make it more feasible, economically more doable. And especially now with the battery side included in most of the, and I think going forward, if you ask me, without including battery storage side into our projects, we should not be talking about renewable energy. And because, for example, I mean, okay, wind is more, of course, may act more like a base load or close to base load, but solar, for example, is only during the day, but during the evening you have no solar. In the wind, sometimes you have wind, sometimes you don't. So for these times, storage needs to be there such that it can, storage part can help the renewable energy act like a base load. So those are, when you put all this together, this means very big opportunity in front of us, but with a lot of challenges. But I think in Turkey, as I said, we are lucky having a very strong private sector, and we are here to support. As EBRD, we have done, being active already since 2009, we have been very active in the renewable energy space already, and 60% of our energy investments were in the renewable energy, which is like 3 billion euros in total in the energy sector. But going forward, we are expecting that this will need to increase further. And I'm also given by my heads higher targets to achieve for also Turkey. We have a big appetite for Turkey. And for example, only for this year, I have a 1 gigawatt of financing pipeline in my hand. And probably going forward, we will try to, with our team in Turkey. By the way, it's one of the largest teams in my team. When I look at all my countries, we will try to do more. Maybe I should stop here.
You gave the good message. You have a very good pipeline. You would like to do more. I think that's quite helpful, and thank you for the good summary. And it was really good to understand the international perspective. Now, I may continue with Mert Bey. I was thinking one financial institution, one investor, one financial institution. So maybe it can be good to hear your thoughts, Mert Bey. Enerjisa Üretim is one of the biggest generation companies in Turkey. You are managing a huge portfolio, and you have many different technologies, and wind is also one part. So we pretty much believe that you can, one of the experts in the industry, which can guide us about the advantages of this wind, and I'm pretty sure that your assessments about the advantages of wind would be very helpful for our audience. So,
sure.
Floor is yours, please.
Okay, thank you, Çağrı, and thank you all for being with us at this time of the day. So, may not be ideal, but we'll try to keep it short and fun. The thing is, as you said, as Enerjisa, we're currently running a operation portfolio of 4.5 gigawatts. We have a solid pipeline that's either under construction or licensed, and with that we're going to reach approximately 6.2, and of which I should say, we're proud to say that we're the first player in Turkey to reach 1 gigawatts of operational wind capacity. If you look at the market now, I mean, starting with the good news, there are lots of opportunities. So starting with the global trends, I guess especially with the turmoil in Iran and the closure of Strait of Hormuz, everybody has understood the supply risk of energy. So far the discussion was around having the cheapest energy, and we as Turkey should depart from the cheapest energy idea a little bit more. But now it's mostly the supply of energy. So if you don't have supply, no matter how much money you have, then there's a problem. To achieve this security of supply, then renewables are the best ideal source to go for. They're cheaper to operate. Yes, they're a little bit more expensive to build, but they're cheaper to operate. And it reduces your dependability on the external sources significantly. Therefore, it's a good thing to invest in renewables. In Turkey, globally, again, if we think of the global trends, there's the electrification, there's the data centers, there's the global warming, there's the ESG trends and carbon minimization, whatever. So everything is directing towards that increase and more investment in the renewables. Coming to Turkey, the good news is that, again, as you may have heard many times since the morning, including the minister, there's an aggressive plan on growth on the renewable energy front. But as Şule has very well mentioned, maybe a quite big target to swallow, because we're investing a lot. Currently, we have completed almost 800 megawatts of our 1,000 megawatt YEKA 2, and then we have started the construction for additional 750 megawatts of YEKA 4. That's putting some load on the balance sheet of the investing companies as well. So coming with the opportunity, there are the flexibility needed. There's strong balance sheet needed. There is mutual trust between the financing institutions, government, and the investors needed. So, although there has been quite a pace on that and quite progress on that, there is some room for improvement here. There's some room for improvement here. So thinking of only opportunities is not enough, but the risks are considerable as well. Take into account, in April, the power prices was to the tune of $20 per megawatt hour surge. So we have our lenders in here. I'm looking at my lenders as well. So did you ever imagine $20 per megawatt hour power prices, even in the tail risk scenarios? Frankly speaking, we didn't. But it teaches us that there should be some more extensive testing of the risks. But if the direction is towards increasing the renewable capacity, which is the right direction and which is the direction indeed, then there should be some measures to improve the predictability, the forecastability, the legal support, the procedures, the secondary legislations, whatever. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mert Bey. It's very good to hear both the opportunities and the, let's say, risks and the downsides of the business. Very happy to hear it from you as one of the biggest investors of Turkey. Now moving to Thomas Möller, but maybe first I should say I also work for KfW IPEX-Bank, and we work together and we finance together. And we use ECA a lot in Turkey. So my question to you, why is this ECA product is quite popular in Turkey, and how do you see the benefit of this product for the investors, Thomas?
Yeah, thank you. But first things first, let me try that. Merhaba, bu panelin organizasyonu ve devletinizin TÜREB teşekkür ederim.
Yeah, it was okay.
Okay, now that was probably the hardest part of my speak here. Yeah, coming to ECA financing, that is in a country like Turkey very crucial for enabling large-scale financing, especially in the renewable field, right? So you have large capex amounts, you need long tenors, and Mert already said that comes along with some risks you can't see in advance. And so, frankly speaking, when I have a cover of an ECA, for example, Euro Hermes, then my credit committee asked me less questions. That's basically what it comes to, because we have a strong risk partner there with that ECA. And so that means without backing, you would really face less appetite. Maybe many international banks were even reluctant to finance like mid or long term, which means you lack financing for those capex requirements. When you get to the back end, you get long tenors, so way above 10 years. The OECD consensus would go for even 22 years. We haven't tested that yet, but that's really very, very long. It gives you a whole lot of international bank liquidity, and given that Turkey has a strong pipeline, that's a big advantage. And it's a tool not only for lenders, but that gives comfort to sponsors, lenders, and all other parties in those deals. So that's really very, very strong argument from my point of view. And furthermore, if you look at that, ECA is quite a flexible instrument. Şule already mentioned the blending. ECA is very, very well usable in blending, and we did that with you, Mert, and so you got to learn a bit about that, and we did that when we structured ECA 2, but now I think that's, especially when it comes to the further ECA rounds, a very, very good tool to go further. So that means it's ECA-backed tranches combined with commercial lending, so which gives you the opportunity to maximize or to minimize your cost for the lending and optimize your debt structure. For example, if you think in terms of ECA, you want to build fast, you can earn a whole lot of money before the feed-in tariff kicks in, so which means that might be attractive for a midterm commercial tranche, and then you have the long feed in, and there you pay back your ECA covered loan. So that's really a neat solution for that. And of course, you can also bring into DFI tranches, so really a whole lot of flexibility. And that's why we think that ECA is not just a guarantee, but this is a partner to catalyze your commercial banking participation to make the banking market over more flexible and deep, right? So, and coming specifically to IPEX-Bank, I think we are one of the leading ECA lenders, especially when it comes to the German Euro Hermes covered loans. So we did have quite a long track record in Turkey, but we also did that worldwide in various regions. I will come to that. So, and then the second one specifically, I also mentioned that there are a lot of advantages for Turkey. So you have that strong pipeline here. You have the strong private sector, which ECA always likes as well. So that's especially with experienced investors and developers like the two here on the panel. So that makes it easy for international banks to structure loans in a way that they can be covered by ECA, but that they can also be digested in the international banking market. And yeah, I already mentioned the ECA tender scheme where we were able to finance with Enerjisa ECA 2, Mert already mentioned that, but also with the ECA 3 with another valued client. And I think we will go on ECA 4. We have already 2 deals that are under structuring, and we are very hopeful. We are looking very hopeful to ECA 5 as well. So that's fitting very neatly in our global track record. So we do that in Turkey, but we do that also in the US. We do that in Germany. Another example where ECA is applied for huge projects also in developed countries. So it's a bit different, but so even if Turkey progresses in its development, it will always be able to take the advantages out of ECA covered financing. So yeah, that's what we like to provide to Turkey further. We do that in a setting which is quite special. Çağrı already mentioned that we are working together hand in hand. So he's the one on the ground. He translates Turkey to our headquarters in Germany. Not so much anymore to me, because whenever I'm here, I have a very good time. And that's why I personally really like to support this market further.
Thank you, Thomas, for explaining and also for supporting the market. So our minister recently announced that there will be YECA 6 this year, tender. So, well, let's see whether we can also make a YECA 6 after making this YECA 2, 3, 4, and hopefully 5. Now, Kayahan, the unique profile of today, being an ex-banker, making the financial models with P90 always, but now turning into the investor side and might be pushing banks to accept P50s. Joke aside, I know him for a long years. I mean, he's such a good guy, and joke aside, by the way. But I think this is unique, and we would like to learn your, view as an investor and as an ex-banker. How do you see, especially these wind and weather projects? And do you see them attractive as an investor, or do you see them bankable as an ex-banker? So we'll be very happy to hear your thoughts, Kayahan.
Sure, thank you. First of all, I'm having the burden of this joke for a very long time through my previous customers or banking colleagues, let me say. Actually, let me just briefly tell about Enerji. We established Enerji just 3 years ago, and right now we have 1,600 megawatts of all renewable capacity, and half of it is comprised of wind power plants, thanks to our valuable partner Polat Holding through Polat Enerji. And also we have an investment in Ateş Wind Power, so it should also mean that we are supporting wind business. It's a very important integrity of the structure, so we are also investing and hopefully giving better chances to Ateş Wind Power as well to increase the industry through also the production of localization of the power plants, creating more new areas or making domestic products as well. From coming to that point, in the past, good times for me when I was a banker. You are right, we mostly went with P90s, maybe P75s, etc. But right now, at that point of time, we are not that aware. We didn't have this much data. Also, we have followed the conservative approach, and also at that time, the tenors and also pricings are in favor of the sponsors. You know that 20 to 80% of leverage, 50 to 85% of leverage, etc. So we were trying to be on the safe side. Right now, the market is better as compared to the previous few years, let me say, but it's also tougher than the last 10 years. But we still think that the wind power plants in general are still bankable, feasible, not as used to be. but we still believe in that. So we are trying to increase our portfolio to be mostly wind power plants as well. Not in Turkey, but also hopefully in Europe. So coming from that point, but wind power plants should, in our opinion, should be done together with battery as well. Because first of all, in the morning session, we only discussed about the additional capacity, but we didn't have a distinction between the battery side of it or YACA side, etc. So in order to create a system balance and grid compatibility, frequency control, etc., you should also take this together with battery systems as well. And also for the time being, the new investments are being done with C rates of 1. We think that it should be also, of course, as an investor, I'm trying to lower my capital costs, but as for the market, in order to benefit the system in a better way, C rate must be lower, in our opinion.
Thank you, Kayahan. It's quite precious to have your combined, perspective, and I'm pretty sure that in the second round I will also come with you some further jokes. Thank you for being so kind. And Berrin Hanım, we also finance some projects with your good bank, and you are one of the pioneers among the local banks supporting the renewable energy. Can we ask what is your assessment criteria and how you see the wind markets? What is important for Ziraat Bank while making assessments of the wind projects?
We are still evaluating with the P90s. We didn't just decrease down to P50. Okay. First of all, thank you TÜREB for having me here with this distinguished panelists. And also I want to thank to the audience because of their patience. But finance is a hot topic right now. It is not easy to find, so you're in the right place. I'll try to keep it short. The question is, do we have a current appetite? The question is easily answered, yes, we do. From a banking perspective, appetite is still strong. Wind is now a mature and well-understood asset class right now. And banks now know the technology and also the revenue structure. So we are very comfortable with the way that it is financed. When we come to the Ziraat Bank, renewable energy is right now, the outstanding risk is almost $1.7 billion. I'm not talking about the commitment, the outstanding risk. According to the banking associations, Türkiye Bankalar Birliği's latest numbers for 2025, almost $15.3 billion has been granted for the energy sector. That's the outstanding risk. And from that amount, $8.7 billion risk belongs to the renewables, nearly 60%. So this shows the appetite of the Turkish local banks. So this is a meaningful presence in the sector. This appetite is also supported by the borrower banking environment. Turkey's external debt rollover ratio is 176%. We do have CDS levels improvements, although we see sometimes as fluctuations, but we have an improvement in here. And renewable energy projects are increasing the banks. They are strengthening the balance sheets of the banks with the green asset ratio. In our case, Ziraat Bank a couple of weeks ago have made a successful syndication, rolled the syndication facility about $1.75 billion. And this syndication loan is linked to the Ziraat Bank's green asset ratio progress, and of course with the sustainable agriculture loan structure. We are not the only one, but this is an example from our bank. So now the banks manage market access, investor confidence, and of course portfolio quality. We can talk about the numbers for a long time. But you know what is important is not about the financing of the green electricity generation. This morning session, the ministries, both of our ministries, had highlighted something very clearly, as my colleagues already mentioned. Having electricity, renewables, is not nice to have, it is must to have. So, in Turkey, renewable energy has become a macroeconomic priority. And electricity consumption is rising steadily, driven by industrialization, driven by digitalization, driven by data centers, driven by electric transport or AI. Or we do have a strong industry. We have to produce cement, we have to produce steel and iron, which means we need energy, every kind of energy. Of course we prefer renewables, but we need an energy. So last month our Ministry of Finance, in one of the summits, he mentioned the amount of the energy import amount between 2003 to 2026, for 23 years' time. I don't know if you have a chance to hear the amount of the energy import that we have done. It is $1.1 trillion. So, for that reason, the green transition is not only an environmental agenda, it is an economic necessity. So every renewable energy, from 1 megawatt to X megawatt, it doesn't matter. It helps to reduce the current account deficit and strengthens our country's energy independence. This direction is also very aligned with the Turkey's National Energy Plan. The target, as again this morning repeated, we will be doubling the wind capacity and quadruple solar capacity by 2035. And of course, this is the clear signal of our country's investment appetite. When we come to Ziraat Bank, we are looking ahead. In the coming weeks, we will be announcing our climate roadmap. And one of our key targets in our climate roadmap will be, we will be reducing the emission intensity of our electricity generation portfolio by 96% by 2030. For us, that is not just a sustainability statement, it is a financing strategy that reflects where the market is moving. We have to, again, maintain just a couple of words to the storage. Storage is an important area for Turkey, and we see it is a field that will continue to develop. It supports flexibility, improve the grid system, and helps integrate more wind and solar into the system. And as the market matures, storage will play an increasing important role in the energy transition. So we expect financing structures to evolve along with it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Berrin. It's always interesting to hear the statistics and the numbers, and thank you for sharing those from the market. And thank you all the panelists for the first round. And if you allow us, maybe we can make a short second round, because we have if you check the title of our session, it says scale risk. We have huge pipeline, numbers are like always gigas, and there are a lot of projects. And now in the second round, a short round, how to make the prioritization to manage this luxury risk, let me put it that way, as a lender. Şule Hanım, maybe we can again start with you. Sure. As a leading DFI, how you make this prioritization and what are the bankability criteria from your perspective?
Yeah, as you said, scale is there, which means opportunity is clearly there. And the biggest strength of having a very strong private sector with the good experience track record showing that they are able to complete their project is also there, which is very important point to even to start thinking about financing a project. However, there are a number of issues and risks which we still need to consider. I mean, renewable energy is once the investment is complete, for the country and for the citizens, it is the cheapest financing energy source. Why? Because they are not burning anything. Wind blows and then generates energy, or solar comes and generates energy. Very minimum operating and maintenance costs compared with fossil fuel, of course, energy sources. So from that point of view, renewable energy was not a luxury for Turkey, but it was a necessity in order to reduce the energy dependence of the country to outside imported energy sources. What we see, for example, this year, it's a very good year with the hydrology. All our dams are full. Our hydroelectricity side is full of energy. And at the same time, of course, we have already set up a very good base of renewable energy capacity also there. But there are days where we have so much solar coming on that energy prices may go down to zero. We should not forget one thing. Of course, in the long run, we are expecting that energy prices has to go down with increased renewable energy sources. However, we should not forget that these investments are still at early stage. They are not yet mature. So which means for lenders like ourselves, even if we take the most aggressive view, we want to see that our financings are repaid. If you start seeing projects failing to pay back their financing, then this will be detrimental for the whole scale, let's put it this way, in front of us. So we need to make sure that the credibility of this scale remains there strong. So most important risk in front of us, which I am seeing at the moment, is revenue foreseeability. Of course, one thing which we are thankful to Minister of Energy and EMRA with the feed-in tariff mechanism, which I think supported the speedy development, and also now with the YEKAS, speedy development of the renewable energy capacity in Turkey. And it's great that it has certain period of time which will help the project paying back its financing cost and financing commitments made. But once it becomes a merchant project, can you imagine zero revenue for a certain period of time? How many investors can bear this? So it cannot be sustainable. So this brings in a good planning to be made. While we are putting the scale together, we should be careful that the market is able to digest the scale in place. So this requires really very careful planning going forward. Maybe not every year we need 7 gigawatt of wind. I'm putting just for the wind. Maybe certain years we need to a little bit slow down so that the market can swallow. Of course, with the electrification, climate change, and digitalization requires more energy, and definitely the demand side will grow, but it may not be in the same speed that we are foreseeing at the moment at least. So we need to be ready for that. So that's why revenue visibility is the most important risk point at this moment. I'm not really thinking, or let's put it this way, I'm not that much of worried anymore about whether the sponsor has the track record, whether they are going to be able to complete the project, or whether technically we will be fully ready. I think from those points of view for the project preparation and technical preparatory works and everything, I think the Turkish market is quite there with the experience that was in place. And the most important challenge in front of us, I'm seeing that we should not be maybe too greedy but we should be maybe carefully investing going forward. So that's why, actually, from lender's point of view, they will look at how the market evolve. What will be the pricing, tariff will go, not the tariff, the electricity prices will go. Whether there is a kind of tariff mechanism which would support scheme. And if it is there, I don't see a problem, but of course this means more expensive energy source for the country, but that's necessity, at least for a certain period of time, to have. So it's really important to have in order to support the scheme. These are more the project-related risks. I need to mention about the system-related risk, and that's the most important thing in front of us is the transmission. I'm hearing a lot nowadays that the project is ready from the project preparation point of view. Technical feasibilities are there, environmental, social, and everything is there. And when we ask them, okay, do you have the connection? They say, sorry, we are waiting in the queue. TWEA didn't give us the connection yet. And right now what I'm seeing is on the renewable side, thanks to our private sector, we are really running fast, but unfortunately our transmission side, transmission grid and infrastructure side is not there yet. And it will not be able to bear all these new renewable energy sources coming. And we should not forget the cases like Spain, which we had suddenly blackout in the whole region, which collapsed the whole region in together. People were not even able to withdraw money from their accounts because ATM machines were not working. Similar case happened, by the way, in Central Asia. In one day, there was a blackout, very short period of time, because there was a cloud on the sun, and there was a sudden drop of the solar production, and it was not possible to immediately transmission grid to adjust this sudden drop. There, the battery comes in. So that's why we cannot forget the storage and transmission side of investments while we are doing all these investments. And these questions will be coming into the minds of any financing institution. What are the risks when you consider, and you always think the worst case, what happens if this happens? And then if you cannot find the answer, then this risk will never be or will not be able to be taken by the financiers. That's why one important recommendation which I would want to make to our regulatory bodies and our authorities is that I think going forward the priority should not be anymore the scale which we put in place. Rather, the priority should be on the transmission and storage side, infrastructure investments to be made in order to bear all these renewable investments coming on board. Otherwise, it may cause our renewable investments fail. Maybe I'm being a little bit gloomy, but we had already these experiences. So that's why, for example, not seeing any kind of support scheme for battery side at the moment, and when our technical sides are asking us, okay, how much storage capacity you have in the country? Can you answer me? Probably it's very little. If we didn't have our good-sized hydropower projects, probably there is nothing which can really consider like a storage. And that's why I think going forward, alarming bell for us, for the sector, is to focus on these two key areas. One thing I have seen, for example, in Central Asia, while they are heavily investing into the renewable energy, at the same time they started, for example, in Uzbekistan, there is this availability-based structures for the storage. They are simply like the wind projects or solar projects. They are giving licenses or the organizing tenders for just only for the storage on an availability-based structures. Why? They want to make sure that there is storage capacity available, and if the grid is not able to bear the additional energy coming, at least it can be stored so that it can be used for the evenings and for the nights. So, and transmission grid is, I mean, today, this morning, our minister mentioned 40 gigawatt of HVDC investments to be made. It's huge, and it requires time. Are we going to be ready by 2035 with 40 gigawatt transmission grid? If you ask me if we go with this speed, no way. Knowing that at the storage side we are almost zero, are we going to be ready in order to bear the storage side need of the whole market? If you ask me, with this slow move that we are not there. So we have to consider all these risks, not just as IFIs or the lender side, but as the whole sector players together. And I'm very much hoping that that part will speed up, because otherwise we may have a lot of crisis cases or blackouts. Of course, I don't want to be too gloomy, but I think that risk needs to be always considered while we are putting the whole structure together.
Sure, that was a good summary, and I can only agree with this good perspective, to be frank. Now the same question goes to Mert Bey. The scale risk from the perspective of an investor. You have a very good pipeline, maybe one of the biggest in Turkey. How do you make the prioritization, and maybe some recommendation to the investors? What should be done to get the lenders alongside you to make this prioritization together with the lenders?
Çağrı, thank you. Before commenting on whether we're going to invest further, yes, we will, but the time is the real question. Before going into how larger we're going to be or how larger we're going to invest further, we need to be careful about some things. That one is that, as Şule has rightfully mentioned again, the predictability in the market. So we need to know how much unlicensed solar capacity is going to be granted. So how long these zero-priced hours are going to last. What's going to be the policy? What's going to happen with the permissions? So yes, there's a super permit law that have been enacted, but secondary legislation is not there. And if you look at the practicality, it's not working as planned right now. So we need to be careful about that. Then comes the global and macro crisis. So we need to be very careful about taking the foreign currency risk. If you're not in YEKDA machine, then you're merchant and your revenues are denominated in Turkish lira, whereas the CAPEX is denominated in foreign currency and you're borrowing in foreign currency. You should be very careful. So had we not hedged our full FX liability, I would be having many longer sleepless nights now. Luckily we did that. Then the other question would be where to invest in. So as Enerjisa Üretim, we always manage to stick to, I mean in a larger sense, but stick to or not deviate that significantly from our EBITDA contribution or our EBITDA commitment because we have a diversified portfolio. So had we have only hydros, last year we would have been dead. Or had we have only NG assets or wind assets with the falling prices now, without protective schemes like YEKDA, we would have been dead as well. So there needs to be a good way, a well-devised, planned way of risk management. This risk management, be it diversify the technologies, be it diversify the currencies, be it diversifying the geographies, but there needs to be a good way to allocate and manage that risks. Being prepared to risks is of utmost importance nowadays. Unless you do, then you'll be dead meat, and that's not that hard to be dead meat in this world. Then, if we're going to grow, so size comes with, obviously, the need for financing. The need for financing, obviously, comes with some burden on the balance sheet. And to be able to do that, you should first digest your pipeline, put them in operational modus, start harvesting their income, and then think of growing further. So you need to be patient. Being quick and just playing on the number of megawatts of installed capacity is not the right way, if you ask me. Or there should be other creative solutions. We're discussing with some other reputable companies as well. Perhaps it may be a good strategy to join the forces. You may not be able to build as one, but you may be able to build through working through some SPVs. That might be another solution. Of course, then you need to select your partner wisely You need to be careful about the synergies and the chemistry with your partner, but it's an alternative. So the message is, it's not a good strategy. To me, it's absolutely a wrong strategy to concentrate only on the megawatts. Be prepared for the risks, digest what you've been doing first, and then play on increased megawatts, or with new partnerships, divest your risk and go into new megawatts. That would be the appropriate strategy. With those strategies, yes, we will grow. We still have the appetite. Our balance sheet is, although a bit loaded nowadays, we're still in the covenant limit, so I'm 1.2. But quite soon we'll be able to harvest what we have invested in, and then we'll be back full force. Yes, we have the appetite, we have the hope for the market. I think there will be improvements. I think we're all talking about those risks, but anybody in the government knows that risks as well. So it's the perfect timing that we should be watching for.
Well, indeed, it was quite precious to hear one of the biggest generation companies of Turkey say that you have to digest, you have to go step by step, because the culture of the Turkish people, not only the investors, we always try to be in a rush.
We have a German shareholder.
Ah, okay, thank you. That's why it was quite precious. Thank you for sharing this. Now, Thomas, again the same question, scale risk. How do you assess when you look at from an ECA lender's perspective, and what might be your recommendations for the investors to get rid of that scale risk?
To get rid of scale risk as equity, I think that's in the end it's not possible. But I think it's a good idea to early think about how to share it in between which partners to share it, and obviously banks are one of the main partners there, and here again ECAs can play a major role, and so that's why I would first of all advise to think about taking on board an ECA at the very beginning of planning a project. So because there are so many decisions that can make an ECA lending harder or easier. So it starts, for example, with how which supplier you use and which procurement structure, and so that's why it's really crucial to talk to people like us that can advise you a bit on ECA lending, and so it's more or less 4 key points that you could take into account for that. So the first one I already mentioned, that you take the right supplier and the procurement structure. Then when it comes to contracting, you need to set that up in a way that it's eligible for ECA, because this is a very bureaucratic scheme, because it should be the same all over the world. It's OECD governed. Be careful how you set up the structure. Then the third thing, timing is very important. So ECA is probably not the fastest way of getting money in the world. So the approval takes some time. Environmental and social due diligence is very specific with ECAs. So you got to be aware of that. And finally, I think that is getting more important now. It's around bankability. So, for example, as I said, we would be glad to be in touch with you quite early on what you got to keep in mind. But to take a mandate, we need a bankable project, which means at that point in time you need to have in place your land-right grid connections, permits. You have already need to have an idea on the offtake structure. That is very important. And then because we want to see that if we take on a mandate to structure that ECA loan then with you. And so to repeat it, it's really important to engage early about ECA financing, to get that piece of risk distribution in the right manner into your project. And coming back to the Turkish market, so what I just heard is all about that Turkey is really at the edge of being a matured renewable energy market. So all the problems that you don't have here, but you are already thinking about, and I think you are doing very, very well and right in thinking about them now. We have them not only in Spain, but in Germany, in UK, so in all those countries where you have way more renewable energy deployed. And why is it that you are at the edge? So you have that vast number of projects, that high number of capacity, and that means, again, for banks and also for ECAs, it'll be different how to select projects that we want to finance, that we want to support, because there are too many that we can support all of them. And so that is, it starts with that nowadays you need to be a proficient developer. So otherwise it'll be probably very hard to find a bank to give you an ECA covered structuring. So projects need to be ready to build. So that's all the same what you see, for example, in Germany nowadays, or in Spain nowadays, or in Italy. There the market is really standardized, and you approach the banking market once your project is ready to build, not early. That is the time to go for Turkey, but you also have that to keep that in mind right now. And then you will see a move from a case-by-case analysis for the financing. We will definitely do that for landmark projects in YECA also in the future, I'm pretty sure, because they are, on the one hand side, they are so huge that you can afford it. There's enough scale in that project itself. But on the other hand, the risk that the bank and also the ECA is taking on is so bulky that you really want to understand that single project, because you don't want to have a failed project with such a large size. But what we have, KfW IPEX-Bank, also think of is to give you more standardized approach in providing ECA-backed financing, and that can be what we call on-lending. So there, the lender of record, for example, for KfW IPEX-Bank or another international bank, wouldn't be the single SME-style developer, but that would be a Turkish bank. And so there would be like a line, whenever a project falls under those conditions, you can get the liquidity and the funds from an international bank, and that funds again are covered by that ECA. And for a smaller investor or developer, the beauty is that they can approach local banks in Turkey, and international banks do not have to fully understand that company, which might be a bit harder. So the clients we are working with regularly have audits that are on an international level. To do so, that's quite a burden, and if you don't want to do so, you probably better off with a on-lending, and I think it's still the same win-win with the compared to what we already know. You bring in the international liquidity, you bring in the risk partners of the ECAs, but you deploy it in a way more efficient manner.
Thank you very much, Thomas. And maybe the same question to Kayahan, but in a more broader perspective. How should be the prioritization maybe for the country? Because I will not make the joke again, but you have these two different roles, let me put it that way. And what might be your recommendation to investors to get the lenders alongside?
Okay, thank you for the jokes. Because today is my birthday also, so I can take into account as president. Thank you for that. I will keep it short because we are running out of time. The other panelists summarizes in a very well way. Actually, as an investor, the project development took a lot You know that these battery pre-licenses were given 4 years ago, but you need to have 4 to 5 years of project development, and project development is not a cheap thing. You need to finance these, and in order to finance them, you need bridge financing. But for the last few years, to reach these types of bridge and foreign currency financing is not easier in Turkey as well. And also, you know that there is a time of money value as well. So in order to, ECA financing is inevitable. The good thing is we have over 20 years of maturity with favorable prices. But in order to reach this 20 years of maturity, ECA financing, like I said, we need to have the project development in hand, and also we need grid connections. Otherwise, we cannot go through with these projects in a short time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kayahan, for summarizing it for the whole market. And Berrin, same question goes to you. The prioritization from a local bank's perspective, what can you share with us?
Explain the details, actually. But I want to just focus on the financing large scale of projects. The main challenges are structural, because large-scale renewable energies, maturities, technically require 12 to 15 years, maybe above. So when you look up to the local banks, we just finance these projects. We operate on a deposit-driven funding base. So sometimes that is a much shorter tenor. So that creates a maturity mismatch in here. So it has to be managed carefully. If these projects, as a project finances, we dig into the cash flows, we just try to manage to generate the cash flow and try to finance it as much as it needs. But in general, there may be a mismatch in there. And the second risk can be there's a challenge in the currency and the exchange rate risk. Investment costs are likely linked to the foreign currency. However, the newer YEKDEM frameworks is TL denominated. So there's a foreign currency index price cap there also. So the combination of this makes the cash flows more sensitive. So we need a hedging discipline and revenue modeling. We are trying to find the risk and trying to find and mitigate it. So we need bankable models there also.
Thank you very much, Berrin. I think we managed the time quite efficiently, and some of our panelists have some flights to catch. So thank you for joining in today's session, and thank you all for listening us, and having you on the 15th anniversary of TÜREB is an honor for the Turkish Wind Energy Association. So I think we can call it a day.